Tonight, former President Trump's defense team launching a fiery start to its case, taking direct aim at the credibility of star prosecution witness Michael Cohen, calling Robert Costello, a former federal prosecutor and attorney for Rudy Giuliani, who advised Cohen before a falling out. Costello describing Cohen as, quote, manic at a 2018 meeting after Cohen's home and office were raided by the FBI. While Cohen is now implicating Mr. Trump in an alleged crime, Costello testifying Cohen told him back then, "I swear to God, Bob, I don't have anything on Donald Trump," directly refuting Cohen's testimony that Mr. Trump directed him to pay off Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Quote, Michael Cohen said numerous times that President Trump knew nothing about those payments and that he did this on his own, Costello testifying. The judge repeatedly sustaining prosecution objections, leading to a heated scolding of Costello after he audibly muttered, quote, ridiculous and geez. The judge at one point saying, "Are you staring me down?" and clearing the courtroom. All of it after Cohen earlier revealed he stole tens of thousands of dollars from his former client. Cohen, who once said he would take a bullet for Mr. Trump, today admitting he duped his old boss into reimbursing him more money than he was owed. Cohen saying that he gave a tech company $20,000 in a brown paper bag and pocketed the rest, tens of thousands of dollars more, for himself. Trump attorney Todd Blanche saying, "You stole from the Trump organization, right?" Cohen answering, "Yes, sir." Later, when questioned by the prosecutor, Cohen saying he stole the money because he had not received a large enough bonus. Quote, "I just felt it was almost like self-help," Cohen said. The defense also suggesting Cohen has profited in other ways off his association with the former president, pointing to the fact that he raked in over $4 million in consulting agreements while also serving as Mr. Trump's personal attorney. And the defense says Cohen is now cashing in as a top Trump critic, too, making over $3 million on 2 books, while Cohen testified he's considering a potential TV show and a 3rd book. The defense calling it a motivation to lie. Blanche asking, "Do you have a financial interest in the outcome of this case?" Cohen saying, "Yes, sir." Though Cohen insisted he'd make more money if Mr. Trump were acquitted, because Cohen says it gives me more to talk about in the future. Cohen's credibility critical to the DA's case, as he's the only witness who has testified the former president had advanced knowledge of the plan to pay Stormy Daniels and then approved a scheme to disguise how he paid Cohen back, which Mr. Trump denies.
There were no crimes. We did nothing wrong. And I want to get back to campaigning. I'm representing millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people.
Cohen in exchange with prosecutors today, quote, "Do you have any doubt Mr. Trump gave you the final sign-off for the payment before you went to the bank?" Cohen replying, "No doubt."
And Laura, the defense late today asked the judge to dismiss the case. Where does that stand?
Yes, Lester, the judge did not rule on that motion just yet, but did not seem inclined to take this case out of the hands of the jury. Meanwhile, Bob Costello is expected back on the stand for more cross-examination tomorrow. Lester?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.